Hi everybody, welcome back to Kathy's Craft Room. Today I'm going to show you how to make this little card that I made for my card swap. I used little rhinestones on it and I put it in a clear bag. The stamp set that I use is called Watercolor Christmas, and it's actually, I'm using that biggest stamp set there that says Merriest Christmas Wishes. That stamp set actually is part of a kit that you can order the kit and then the stamp set separately. So here's the paper I use. For the base, I use Whisper White, 8.5 by 11, cut at 5.5 and scored at 4 1/4. And then I have a piece of cherry cobbler that's just one size smaller. And then a piece of this little DSP that's cut at 4 by 3 3/4. So just going down one step, but I did make that 4 inches wide. I do also use some silver string there that I'm gonna tie around the card. And I use the scalloped edges and cut that out in garden green. It's the largest scallop. And then I use the stitched framelits to cut out around, here's the stitched framelit that I used. And it's the largest one that's available. And I use that with the stamp to have the big circle on top of the scallop. The only ink pad I used is cherry cobbler, but I did use Versamark and embossing powder, clear embossing powder, to make it stand out. I also used my heat tool here, and these are all the tools, and I used some rhinestones just to pull it all together. So let me clear off everything and then we can start assembling the card here. Okay, so we're gonna start with our Whisper White. This is thick Whisper White, not regular Whisper White. And I'm gonna go ahead and get it scored. It's already cut at 5.5, and now I'm gonna score it at 4 1/4. Let me pull that down a little bit so you can see I'm scoring at 4 1/4. Make sure your scoring blade's on. Okay, so there's our card base. And one thing I've started doing, if you notice there's like a little lip, because sometimes the paper's not exactly 8.5 inches. So that bothers me. So I go ahead and measure it out, and I'm gonna cut off that little bit at the bottom just to make it nice and easy. It just helps it stand up better. So it's just a little sliver. You'll see it's really small. It's barely off, but it bothers me, so I take it off. So now my card will stand up much better for that. So now I have everything scored, and you can see the bottom's nice and even. So I have a good solid card base there. I'm gonna go ahead and cut down this little piece. I cut them originally at 4 by 4, and that was a little too big, so I ended up cutting it down to 4 by 3 3/4, just to give it a 1/4 of an inch edge all the way around, keep it nice and clean. This also helps me use more of the DSP to make more cards, because I had a lot of cards to make. All right, so next step here is we're gonna go ahead and start putting some of the base together. So I have my cherry cobbler that's cut at 5 1/4 by 4, and I have my silver ribbon, and I'm gonna wrap it around. Right now I'm just measuring it because it's on a spool, and then I'm gonna pull it down here in a second. All right, so here's my card. And then this is just a little bit of score tape because I didn't have any regular tape. You can use whatever you have. I just literally had no regular tape laying around, and I needed to be able to put my string on. But before I do that, I need to get my DSP on here. So I'm gonna go ahead and use some snail, and we're going to attach our little 4 by 3 3/4 piece of DSP onto the cherry cobbler. So we're just gonna adhere that, leaving a little bit of a lip all the way around. So it's like 1/8 of an inch all the way around there. And then on the right hand side is where we're gonna put our silver ribbon. So I'm gonna take the end of it, and I don't wanna waste any of it. So I'm gonna put it where I want at the top, and then I'm gonna put that piece of tape right over it. Then I'm going to wrap it. Oh, I don't like that placement. I want it over a little bit. I want it kind of close to the DSP, and that's a little too close to the DSP. So I'm just adjusting it real quick before I wrap it around one time, and then wrap around a second time. And then I'm going to tape it down with another piece of score tape. You can use regular tape. I just used score tape because that's what I had. I'm sure I have regular tape somewhere. I'm sure someone in my family took it. So we're going to use this and put it right over that just to hold it down, and then I'm going to cut off the excess because I'm going to tie that into a ribbon for the front. So I'm going to just reposition my little ribbon there, get it to where I like it. I'm going to take off the backing off my score tape here and here. Pull that off. And then I'm going to use my snail again. I'm going to come in and put quite a bit of snail all over the back of my cardstock. And then I'm going to take that and adhere it to the Whisper White base that we already created. And I'm just going to leave a little edge around that as well. So I'm going to line it up and then push it down. All right, that looks good. So now we're going to have a little fun. Let's see here. We are going to do some embossing. So this is just a piece of regular Whisper White, not thick Whisper White. I'm just cutting a piece of it off. That way I can easily put it through my Big Shot later. So I am taking my embossing buddy. I do find this helpful. I know it's just powder inside of a little buddy guy there, but it just removes the static off of the paper so that when you put down the embossing powder, it doesn't stick random places. And then I'm bringing my stamp back in, and I have it already mounted. I'm going to take my Versamark and make it upside down for this one because of the fact that the Versamark pad is smaller than the stamp. That way I know I got it everywhere. And then I'm going to go straight from there to my Cherry Cobbler ink pad, and I'm going to ink it up, make sure I get all over. And then I'm going to stamp straight down from there as soon as I position everything and stamp it down. All right, nice, good, solid image there. Nice and big. I really like it that it's so big. And then I need to emboss it. One thing that I have to recommend is make sure you shut your Cherry Cobbler ink pad because it will get everywhere. It's very strong ink. So then I put my scrap piece of paper down, and then I'm taking my clear embossing powder, and I'm going to go ahead and put some on, cover it pretty generously. I think I have 4 packages of the clear embossing powder inside that one container, and it lasts a long time. I emboss a lot, and you see I barely use any of it. All of that excess is going to go right back into the container. You see how much is left. I did put quite a bit on the paper, but in the end I only use a little, and then I knock off all of the excess back into the container. So I did cut it down just a little bit more after I put it away, and I'm going to turn on my heat tool, and now we're going to go ahead and watch this come to life. So my heat tool's heated up, and now I'm going to just kind of start wiggling it back and forth. You can see it start to change tones. It looks kind of opaque at first, and then as it's literally melting the embossing powder to pull out the color, and then it just has to cool down. So I'm going to go ahead and do the entire thing, make sure everything gets melted. If you ever get to a point where some of it didn't melt, just turn your heat tool back on and finish melting it, and it will melt rather quickly. So yes, now I'm going to cool it down because it is hot, and you don't want to, while it's still hot, just like anything that's hot and liquidy, it can move around. So I went ahead and used this framelit, the stitched framelit, and I cut that out with my Big Shot, and now it's nice and cool. So now I can go ahead and put some rhinestones on all the little eyes that are on there. I thought it was just a nice little touch to make it stick out. So I'm going to take the smallest ones, and these are new rhinestones, so they're nice and separated out. So I'm going to take and put one little rhinestone on each of the eyes. Let's get that third one on there. I do use a little tool. You guys might recognize that Cricut tool. I do use that. It just makes it easy. You can use a bone folder or whatever you have available, and then you get this Merriest Christmas Wishes with little gemstones for the eyes. And I'm going to take that, use some more snail, and then adhere that on top of our, where's it at? our garden green little scalloped circle. So I'm going to line it up. This doesn't have much of an edge on it. These are the two biggest dies, so it's just enough to peek around the back just to show a little bit of green on there. Now here, the next part of this is, remember that little piece of ribbon we had earlier? Now we're going to tie this into a bow. Not exactly my favorite thing to do. I am not a very good bow tire, but I do like to make them look pretty. So pardon me as it takes me just a minute to pull that in. Now we have a cute little bow, and I'm going to adjust it. Oh, those ears are too big. Let me pull those down because I want it to be small and I want it to be even. I just want it to be a pretty little bow there. So once I have it where I want it, I'm going to go ahead and cut the tails off. There. All right, 1 and 2. Oh, that one's a little too long. And then I'm going to use a glue dot to keep it in place. So I'm just going to put the bow right on top of the glue dot and then put the little bow at the bottom of my sentiments. Now, coming up to my favorite part, we just need to adhere these together with my favorite Stampin' Dimensionals. So I'm going to grab the Stampin' Dimensionals here, and I'm going to use quite a few of them to hold this down. So this is circular and I really don't want it to fall off. I am going to be mailing these, so I want to give it plenty of dimension. So I think I put 7. Yeah, I put 7 of them on here. And the dimensionals, I also use the edges. I use every bit of my dimensionals to make them pop. It's all good and sticky. So pulling off all my little dimensional paper that you guys all know, we probably find them all over our house, sticking to your elbows. And then I'm going to put this right in the middle here and kind of smush it down, readjust my bow. If I was going to send this out, I would put a little Christmas sentiment on the inside, but these are for card swaps, and I don't know what everybody else is going to use them for. So our card swap requires us to put them inside of these clear envelopes. Honestly, it's the best way if you're sharing cards to send them. It keeps them nice and clean. It makes it to where you don't lose anything. And that is my card. So here's a close-up of the card. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.